Simi Arif joins us in studio.
He knows more than you can imagine.
Is President Barack Obama a Muslim?
Because you know it's going to be a zoo.
It was already a zoo.
Did anything happen while I was gone? Haven't you noticed the whole place is on fire?
Let me tell you why you're here.
But they can only speak in question.
Are there side effects? Or?
Just diarrhea.
My first guess is...
Simi.
Like who's there, this guy?
Lesser known somebodies.
Welcome to Africa's 8th Best Podcast with me, Simi Arif. You can tell I may be a bit out of breath. So I found out one of the guys that I really wanted to interview in the world was in Cape Town. And I had to get there. And I tweeted him. I was like, yo, person, please, can I record you on my podcast? And they were like, of course you can. Then they're like, hey, Simi, I'm available on Thursday right after this talk I'm doing. Can you record me then? And I said, are you not coming to Johannesburg? Because that's where I stay. And he's like, no, surely Johannesburg must be close to Cape Town. And I was like, you know what? He's not from here. So I said, yes. And I booked myself.
At what point am I allowed to interject just point out the bullshit in this story?
Please wait, Stuart. Please wait. Please. I'm not ready for this. And I booked myself a flight. You know, so the African prices, we're going through tough times. There's no like national airplane carrier that's willing to give us decent prices. Booked a 1,500 flight down to Cape Town. Please, sir, stop interjecting, even with your laughter. And then what I did, I booked a 1,800 flight back on the same Thursday because I missed my mother's food. I wasn't planning to stay in Cape Town for an extra second. And that person is Stuart Goldsmith. Now, if you guys don't know Stuart Goldsmith, he hosts probably one of the biggest comedy podcasts in the world. If you're a comedy nerd, you definitely have listened to the ComCom Pod, Comedian's Comedian. Now, let me tell you a funny story. Welcome, Stuart. Welcome.
Wait. Yeah. I've still got no right of reply.
Okay,
this
you can get your right of reply. Yeah, you can get it. Okay, get your right of reply. Okay, get your right of reply. Get your right of reply.
Absolutely dreamt up thing.
Okay, get your right of reply. Go for it.
A, you hadn't made it clear you were in Johannesburg.
Okay, that's true.
B, I'm in Cape Town at the Cape Town Comedy Festival. So you were approaching me, having discovered I was at the Cape Town Comedy Festival. You held all the cards, and here you are, furiously retconning. You're like Stalin. You're airbrushing yourself into a position whereby...
This is not how I want to start speaking to one of my idols. Okay, this is not what I plan to do with one of my idols. So stop this.
Well,
just accept.
Stop quoting how much money you reckon I've made you spend.
Here's my assumption: if you're flying to South Africa, you're coming through Johannesburg.
Well, that is clearly an incorrect assumption.
Really, you flew straight from?
No, I did go through Johannesburg, but at the time when I went through there, I didn't. And look, we're getting off the main point here, which is that you don't rate Cape Town food very highly.
I don't.
Seems a strange thing for you to say on a podcast.
They don't have.
Presumably with listeners
in
Cape Town.
Say it on a podcast. I say it on stage in Cape Town. I'm not scared of telling them I don't like their food.
Hang on, you've just identified there from the way you talked about that, you suggested that, I'd even say it on stage, you're suggesting that the depth of this podcast audience is fewer than the people you talk to at a gig.
Probably. This is Africa, my friend. This is not ComCom Pod where people be like, hey,
so what you're saying, you've got 10 listeners, but you regularly do 50,000 seater venues.
Oh, easy. Easy. That's my type of thing. 150 seater, but I've just gotten there.
Sweet.
So let me tell you why I'm excited. 2015, I'm still a youngin' at that time. 25. Yeah, 25. And I go to this Montreal Comedy Festival. And the only reason why I go to it is because I love comedy to the point where I research everything, and I've seen this name pop up. So I was like, I'm going to take this money that I made from a McDonald's advert. I'm going to buy a ticket, and I bought the worst ticket. Like, it's a 29-hour flight. It shouldn't be. It's like 18 hours.
29-hour flight.
Yeah, the longer the hours, the cheaper the flights do.
That's you should have worked harder at McDonald's, mate.
That's it. That's it.
You see what I've done there? You said it was a McDonald's commercial, and I've heard that and immediately discounted it and assumed you were working at McDonald's.
Love the Brits, eh? You've got to love them, here, guys. So I go to this festival.
Was it the sort of commercial where you are flipping burgers in your regular day job
I was
at
eating
McDonald's?
The burger. It was the most
they happened to tape you and make you say, "I'm loving it," and you're like, and then ever since then you've said, "I did a McDonald's commercial."
Worse, I had to portray an Indian person and add an Indian accent.
Wow!
And eat a spicy burger. So,
what's your heritage? Are you
Arab and Malay.
So not Indian?
Nah.
Wow.
No, I mean, like, technically, so everyone's always put people in boxes. Like, so they'll go like, are you Indian, black, white, or colored, right?
Okay.
But like, my surname Arif is Arabic.
Yep.
So even though my great-great-great-grandparents may have come from India, they came from the greater part of Mesopotamia before that.
Sure.
Know? So it's hard to just say, like, I'm Indian.
It's hard, isn't it? Do you think there'll be a future whereby castings go out for, we're looking for a Gaian, someone who at some point in their heritage is from Earth? And you go, well, yep, I can do that job.
Well, let me tell you, I got a casting call yesterday who said, whites only. I was like, wow, we've gone
Whoa!
back. We've gone
Okay.
back. We've gone back.
Gosh.
But back to my story. So I pack my bag. I go to the Montreal
What
Festival.
job was the whites only job? Was it a voiceover?
No. It was an Afrikaans person on a television series.
Okay.
So if you can praat 'n bietjie Afrikaans, dan jy kan die job gee. See, I'm not even good at the Afrikaans.
I think I understood purely from context. I think I can speak. Can I speak Afrikaans? Because I felt like I was following.
Do you have any Dutch heritage in you?
My wife is a little bit Dutch.
Oh, you've got
Does
it,
that
boy.
count?
You've got it. You're in the mix.
And she is a lekker ding.
Oh, wow. A lekker ding. Wow. Are you using that on stage? Because you know South African audiences love when you can speak a little.
No. Okay, so here's the thing I sometimes say on stage.
Yeah.
If I find out there's any Dutch people in the audience, I say, doe alsof ik iets grappig zeg, lachen dus.
Okay,
which I learned a long time ago.
Yeah.
Means pretend I said something really funny and laugh. Because I thought it'd be funny if I learned that phrase in every single language. And then whenever I was hosting, I was like, where are you from? They go, Bulgaria. And I say in Bulgarian, pretend I said something really funny and laugh. It'd look like I knew a joke in every language. The problem with this, I started with Dutch. It's so fucking hard. I never learned any other version.
Oh, it's not bad. So 2015, I get to this comedy festival. And you must understand as not a newbie, because I've been doing comedy since I was 18. I'm 32 now. Yeah.
You're so rueful. That's twice you've mentioned your age. And like the first time you said, I was a young guy. Like,
the fans love to hear. They love to hear.
Well, it's a shame that you should do this as a video podcast so they can see the rueful way that you're kind of looking into the middle distance.
They know. And during the day, I thought there's nothing to do. I thought there's only gigs at night. So you must understand, for me, I just wanted to go watch as many things as I could, because I was as a Muslim person, that also felt like my Mecca. I felt like I had two of them.
Oh, double Mecca.
Yeah, double Mecca, which is crazy to think.
Mecca ding.
Oh, wow. And one day I'm walking through one of the hotels, the main one, the Hyatt, and I'm following all these people, and I see Patton Oswalt. And now I'm a massive Patton fan.
Oh, yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to hang around near this person so I can be like, yo, I hung around with Patton Oswalt for the day.
You need to join the group of nerds that are hanging around
near
Patton Oswalt. Not the ones near him, not the industry people near him, not the comics he's actually friends with, but the sort of satellite group of stinking nerds.
So I'm just sitting over there and I'm having a good time. And then I see him go into a room, so I go into the room also, and there's 2 chairs on a stage, and I sit down, and some lady comes to me, she's like, are you here for the Patton interview? And I was like, of course I am. Of course I'm here for the Patton interview. And then I see you go on stage, and you speak to Patton, and I was like, what is this thing called? And then you kept on mentioning the word podcast. I was like, oh, damn, this thing looks fire. And Patton was taking questions.
Okay,
I was like, whoa, this is most beautiful thing ever. I get back to South Africa after their festival, and my mind is blown. And I start my podcast, Lesson on Somebody's. And here we are today, 3 years later, coming full circle, because I was in awe of you. I've listened, bearing now you've got like 327 odd episodes, I think I must have listened to at least 150 odd before my phone got stolen. You know? But like in a row. Like,
yeah.
Thank you, Yasin Barnes, for saving the day. Okay.
Cameo appearance from Yasin, who was also watching. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Forget Yasin.
Yeah, no, they know.
I'm busy being buttered up by this story that you very sensibly.
Yeah.
That was lovely. Yasin waited on the stairs. Will I feature? No.
You can if you want, Yasin. Yeah, that's Yasin Barnes, everybody.
You were busy buttering me up with a story that I'm so pleased you didn't tell me when you first contacted me.
Yeah.
It's so lovely to hear in person. I created you. I'm the Joker to your Batman.
That's exactly what you are. You are the Joker to my Batman.
God.
I cannot tell you. So the first interview I did was with a comedian from South Africa, because I was interested in understanding how other people's comedy journeys started. Because your industry and my industry are 2 different industries. Mm-hmm. They're not the same. And I was.
Is that what different means? I'm very glad you cleared that up.
Oh my gosh, this guy's an asshole. You're not an asshole on your podcast, bro. On your podcast, you feel like you love the person. And speaking to you, I've just realized
but on my podcast, I invite people I know.
You know all those people?
No. I mean, I know their work.
Oh.
Who are you? You're some guy. You sent me a tweet.
Yeah, but look how the internet works. Look at that. A fan reached out to you.
Please, this is a delightful thing. Don't let me fuck this up.
That you don't really like. In fact, I've interacted with you before. I tweeted you once, a year or 2 ago, going, hey, Stuart, big fan. Need you to do me a favor. Please, can you get Daniel Kitson?
Yes.
And you said, sorry, bud, no chance. He doesn't want to do it.
Yep.
And I thought I thought you didn't put enough effort into your fan tweeting you saying, hey, my man.
Oh, what should I have responded?
Yo, I'm taking this tweet and I've sent it to Daniel. I know you've tried to contact him.
Daniel's not on Twitter.
Yes, but I'm sure you got him on WhatsApp or something.
I've printed it out. I texted him.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've been like, yo, Daniel,
Hey, if there is something known to change the mind of
Daniel
the
Kitson.
most famously iconoclastic and misanthropic
Comedian
of the circuit,
Yeah.
then it'll be a photo of it'll be a text with a photo of a tweet from someone I don't know.
Yes.
That'll
and
get
it'll be
him.
like, yo, it's time to make a change. I've actually got a funny story about Daniel Kitson, but I'll share it right now. So I went to go visit my sister in London, saw South Africa get whipped in the World Cup of cricket. Big fan of cricket, right?
Okay.
And I'm at the Van Gogh Museum at the Tate, and I'm enjoying it. And then I get an email from Daniel's subscription list, and he's like, "Hey, I'm doing a show at the Bill Murray tonight."
Yes.
And I was looking at sunflowers, and I was like, "There's a 25-pound entrance fee. It's £5.
£25?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Van Gogh, bro.
I'm sorry. I thought you meant for the gig.
No,
yeah,
no.
yeah, okay.
Van
fine.
Gogh, bro.
Oh, yeah.
Van Gogh. I'm looking at sunflowers.
The Kitson of the art world.
Yeah. And I'm going, fuck Van Gogh, eh? And I jump onto a train. I get to this gig, and I'm there like 6 hours before. And the lady's like, Kitson tickets. I was like, yes. And she's like, oh, it's sold out. You got to wait in the line. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, yeah, well, okay, I'm going to write a letter on your arm. And that's the letter that you are on the waiting list.
Oh, my God. And your letter is
J.
AAC.
And I was like, I'm 25. The email came out 25 minutes
You
ago.
should have bought them online immediately. You got the email.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that. I'm from Africa, living in another country with my sister. I'm not going to use my credit card there.
Yes.
You don't know what's going to happen.
Stupid sister.
So that's I'm a massive fan of you, and I'm so glad that it's come full circle and that I get to be here. So welcome to the show, Stuart.
Well, thank you very much. What a wonderful introduction. I have enjoyed playfully being mean to you.
No, thank you.
Now I feel like a piece of shit.
No, please be mean to me. That's what makes this podcast work. So before we get into a lot of things, there's a guy who's also started a podcast in Durban. His name is Bob Perfect, comedian. Open for me a couple of
love
times.
that his name is Bob Perfect.
Real name is Darren Scott, but Darren Scott was a name of a radio DJ who was racist.
But I love that he didn't decide to. Racist DJ.
Yeah.
Okay, best kind. Yeah. I love that Bob Perfect didn't decide to slightly change his name,
No, not
or
at all.
even change his name to a name that sounds like a name a person would
Yeah,
have.
nope.
He just went full showbiz.
Yeah.
Bob Perfect.
Bob Perfect. And
it's even quite hard to say because that double plosive in the middle. You really need to make an effort to climb over the P.
You know,
you've got to go Bob Perfect.
I've got a Bob Perfect story for you, right? Because he's a big time atheist,
Hit me.
and one time he wanted
Big time
massive.
Like a lot of people don't believe in God.
Yeah,
but he doesn't
yeah.
believe in God.
That
Yeah,
same
okay.
energy, that attitude you have, that's him.
Got it.
So he jumps on stage once and he's like, I hate God. And he says, maybe you didn't hear me. So he stands on a stool and then he goes, I hate God, but hits his head on the ceiling.
Incredible.
And then I was like, God does work in mysterious ways. He
Yes.
made the ceiling shorter at this moment in time just for you. And Bob hated it. But Bob has this to say.
Hey, Simi and Stuart. Bob
Bob.
Perfect here, fellow podcaster and comedian.
Pushing
I'm actually a
it.
little bit jealous that Simi's got you on, Stuart.
I know.
Because, yeah, I'm quite a big fan of the Comedian podcast.
So you
and
say.
I really enjoyed your Like I Mean It special. So hopefully one day I'll get to chat to you
Doubt
as
it.
well. But for now, I'm stoked that Simi's given me the opportunity to ask you some questions.
Thank you,
I'm going
Bob.
to ask you two questions. He said one, but I'm going to ask you two because I'm going to take advantage
Asshole.
of his charity here. And I'm going to ask you, one, do you get over interviewing comedians? You've done hundreds of interviews with comedians
Good question.
now. And, is that something that gets a bit monotonous, or do you find new things each time? And two, do you think you get booked more because of the podcast? Thanks. I really want to hear what you have to say, and I'm looking forward to this episode a lot.
Of course you are, Bob. Of course you're looking forward to that episode.
Okay, so hello, Bob. Thank you for your question. It's unsurprising to me that both of those questions I would consider to be perfect. And many apologies, Bob Perfect, that Simi spoke over your question the entire time in every breath and pause.
No. Those are both my questions that I fed to Bob. So.
Oh, yeah, right. Guys,
Bob is new at this thing. Bob
But
is new.
I particularly liked when he said, I'd love to get you on my podcast sometime,
Yeah.
and you went, doubt it.
Yeah.
It's so unfair. And also, might I suggest that a podcaster phoning into a podcast to ask a podcaster to ask a podcaster their question
It's the most meta thing you've ever seen.
Ouroboros thing I've ever been involved in.
Ooh, Ouroboros, guys. Wow, big words here.
Yeah, do you know that? That's the snake that eats its own tail.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right, that guy. So, you know that guy? You know Ouroboros?
Yeah, Ouroboros, what a cool
Well, his
dude.
name, there was someone else called Ouroboros, so he's called Bob Snake now.
Oh, wow.
But, so the first question was, I can't remember either of the questions.
Do you get bored of...
Well, do you know, I mean, this pause is speaking volumes, right?
Yeah.
So every so often, I will think, oh, for fuck's sake, I've got to organise a load more podcasts. I never think, I don't want to do this interview with someone, but I do sometimes, like, because I now financially rely in part on the income from the podcast, which is not considerable, but it's sometimes very useful given the contraction in the circuit, the comedy circuit in the UK. I sometimes feel like I've created this thing, and then sometimes I feel like anything good, sometimes it's a bit of a gilded cage.
Yeah, of course.
So sometimes I think, it'd be lovely to not ask anyone about comedy for a month. Well, because I do knock out one a year, and I've been going 8 years. Now, I haven't done one a year for all of that time, but for the last 4 or 5 years I have, and there's been the odd month off here and there.
Yeah.
But often, I mean, sometimes I think, I couldn't give a toss how anyone writes their jokes. Don't care at all. So I don't think that for very long, but sometimes I look out the window and huff.
I think my follow-up to Bob's question is it monotonous? You've done a lot of them. Millions of people have downloaded and listened to, but I want to know, is the research in it? Because you say you research in-depthly.
Yes.
Does that not become monotonous? Does that not become very academic and disciplined and takes the joy out of it?
It doesn't become academic. The work itself isn't monotonous because I'm watching stand-up comedy, which I love. But the fact of it feeling like homework is a ball ache. Yeah, definitely.
Because you're over 300 episodes in. I'm not saying, I'm sure the vast majority must have been something exciting, especially when you start.
Sure.
And I'm sure they must have gotten to a stage just after 2-3 years, maybe it's like, this is mundane now.
It's not that it's mundane. It's not like I'm not digging holes. You know, I'm going, right, I've got to... So Desiree was on the show. Desiree Birch. She's doing the show here, and one of the shows here, and she's a fantastic comic. I saw her hour at Edinburgh last year. And so on the morning of the interview, or the day before, I watched a 20-minute clip of her stand-up, a 5-minute clip of her stand-up, a 7-minute clip of her stand-up. I looked at her Wikipedia page. I followed a bunch of links. I looked at her reviews from the last year from the show I saw, clicked on 10 of those links, read all those reviews to get a sense of what people were saying about her, and also to refamiliarise myself with the material I saw a year ago.
Yes.
And then I remembered, so she did that big breakthrough show, Unfuckable, 2 years ago.
Please don't swear in my podcast.
Oh, sorry,
I'm joking. You should have seen his face. It's like, I'm so sorry.
What a cunt.
Yeah.
So then I clicked on a few of those to get a sense of what was happening there. So that's all the research. It's not monotonous in and of itself. It's a fun challenge to find out about someone, and also it's all, I don't mean ammunition, but it's so good to have a grounding on someone. Look, imagine how flattered I am that you would open your introduction to me by saying, hey, listen, man, it's kind of because of you that I do this thing. That's enormous. So suddenly I'm like, I didn't know you before, and I've been thinking, I would love to be doing an open-top bus tour of Cape Town around now, but I've got to be on this guy's podcast. And suddenly I'm like, I'm completely on board now because I know you give a shit and you care about me and you see me before. So I want my guests to feel like I've really made an effort because I really care.
Bro, I mean, I can't tell you how full circle this is for me. It's like, I sat in the front row. I remembered I put up my hand and you said question, and then I realized, I don't have a good question. Put my hand down. And then my mate next to me, Riyad Musa, who's another South African comedian who's extremely funny. He was patting a great question. I just looked at him after, like, yo, dog, don't embarrass me like this at this thing I found out. This is a podcast. This is a live recording of a podcast, Riyad.
God. Oh my God.
I also want to ask you, like, so how?
Hang on a minute. Did we finish Bob's question? I felt like
we did.
The first one.
And the first one, Bob. The second
first
thing,
one
Bob,
was, does it get monotonous? And my answer is broadly no, but sometimes I make the work more monotonous than it has
the
to be.
second one that he had was. Let's actually just listen again.
Hey, Simi.
Oh, God.
Bob Perfect.
Fucking Bob. I'm sick to the back teeth of Bob Perfect.
Bob,
I'm
just
actually a little bit jealous.
yes, we get it, bro.
I'm going to slam him. Get ready for this.
Yeah,
Bob flawed, more like.
Podcast, and I really enjoyed your Like I Mean It special.
Yes, we get it. You're sucking up,
hopefully
Bob.
one day I'll get
Thank
to
you.
chat
That
to you
special's available on
as
YouTube.
well, but for now,
good.
I'm stoked that Simi's given me the opportunity
Yes,
to ask you
get
some
to it, my
questions.
friend.
So I'm going to ask
I've only got
you
20 more
2
minutes.
questions. He said 1, but I'm going to ask you 2.
I can't believe I'm wasting so much time with
of
you.
his charity here. And I'm going to ask you, 1, do you get
Oh, wait.
interviewing?
I remember what it is. Do you get booked? I've got it on my notes. Do you get booked because of your podcast?
Do I get booked because of it? Only, but yes, but in a circumspect kind of way. Yes, I'm sure there are newer gigs and promoters who are also comics themselves who will I probably occupy slightly more real estate in their mind because they have they've listened to an episode recently. So when they're looking to book acts, they'll go, "Oh, we'd love it if you come and headline this." Very often happy to do it. That's lovely. It's not that I don't get booked at like the main big clubs as a result of it. I would say that the podcast, as well as my own live work, they're indistinguishable in how they've raised my profile. And so sometimes I get booked because my profile is up a bit. And sometimes I get booked to go super exciting places. Next week, I'm going to be in Austin, Texas at South by Southwest.
I'm so jealous of that.
Oh, mate, you should be. It's incredible.
Thank you.
It's like, honestly, I'm going to be the only British guy there, which is always super special, apart from Matt Kirshen, but he's basically naturalised. He doesn't count. It's like being in 2040. You zip around on an electric scooter, taking tea with dot-com billionaires who will forget you whilst they're talking to you. And it's super exciting. So that is, unquestionably, I wouldn't have got that if the booker wasn't a fan of my podcast who became a friend.
Okay. And here's my next question. Do you feel that people consider you, because the amount of podcasts you have and the amount of interest around your podcast, would you be considered a gatekeeper? Like people would...
yes. In a tiny way. Like, gatekeeper in the same way as I am a comedian. It doesn't mean I'm an arena gatekeeper.
Yeah, but maybe people have the fear like, Stuart has this very big podcast and he can sway an opinion.
Yes, and I have to tell people off when they quote me on their posters because I don't think I was talking to someone about this today.
Remove Stuart's quote from posters.
When I see a poster at a festival that says comedian X, who's someone who's like a mid food chain comedian, and they quote a really brilliant comedian, and it's attributed to comedian Y, who is, unless comedian Y has 2 Netflix specials and does arenas, then it makes them both look like a piece of shit, right? Because some guy we've never heard of says that some person we've never heard of thinks they're great, and I just think it makes everyone look bad. So people do occasionally ask me for quotes, and I say no in a nice way. I say, I'm not going to say what I say. I decline.
There's an asshole down here.
No, I'm saying there's a loophole. There's a way of asking about a particular thing, but I don't want to. That's just if people ask me. We'll see. I don't want.
Of course,
I'll get floodgates. You know what? What comics are like.
Yeah, I know exactly.
Jesus, in the early years of the
Stuart,
podcast,
I heard you do this has got podcast in South Africa, and
exactly. I said in the first couple of years of ComCom, I said, "Hey, I should do an open spot special," and bang, my inbox was full because it was all these people going, "Hey, I should be on the thing, and here's why, and here's my CV." Yeah. As I'm sure you know, being a producer of a thing, even if it's a podcast rather than a festival or a gig.
I did a live one of these things. It was the worst thing ever.
Yeah. You get to see how people approach you. I get to see how other comics, I get keen Canadians who send me their CV and a brilliantly worded note and a thing to get on the show. I get people sending me a grunty text going, "Why haven't I been on the show yet?" And I go, "Oh, wow, this is how everyone operates." You get to see this kind of... South Africa's on fire.
Look at South Africa. We're in the theatre and we can still hear like the police come down the road.
So, yes, in answer to your question, I am regarded to some small extent as a gatekeeper. Now, one of my most satisfying things about my show is when a comic comes up to me in October and says, "Hey, the episode we did in June, I had so many people come to my Edinburgh Fringe show and say that because I was on the show." So that is really lovely. It's not that I'm keeping a gate.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's almost like a certificate of authenticity. It's like that's exactly how
it is.
Because
I hope it is.
When you hype up someone and I listen, I go, okay, cool. That's the reason I found like a person like Bo Burnham, who's someone like I connect with.
Sure.
Like I've never met the guy, but like everything he does, I just think is the most fantastic thing ever. I also write funny poems. I also do this. I also like playing a bit of piano. I like playing around with music. And I wanted
for that part, Simi was adopting the persona of Bo Burnham.
Oh, thank you.
Initially, I was thinking, "Oh, Simi, do you write poems?"
I do. And the reason why I like a person like Bo is because you've told me. Stuart Goldsmith said, "I love this person's
ridiculous
mind."
Because Bo has like a bajillion subscribers.
Of course, but the only way I found a Bo
is through me.
It's through you. The only reason I found comedians, that's like, because you must understand, the first DVD that most comedians have watched is Eddie Murphy's Raw, or one of the Kings of Comedy type of things.
Yes.
There's not many people that go like, "Oh, I saw the Comedians of Comedy thing with Patton and Zach Galifianakis."
Sure.
Like those things, maybe now, but when I started, like Cat Williams, the one where he wears the green suit.
Yeah, okay.
Those are the things. That's the only access to comedy we have.
Yes, I understand.
So
the thing is, then I'm not a gatekeeper. I've got to think quickly of a smaller version of a gate, like a less significant, smaller thing than a gate, like a mouse hole door.
What's the thing that the dog goes through?
A cat flap keeper.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's a cat flap keeper.
I'm a flap keeper of comedy.
So it's Are you enjoying Africa? That's you basically answered my question,
geez.
and I'm done with it.
Yeah.
I could end the podcast if I wanted to, but I'm done. Oh, here's my question. That was actually a follow-up to that. Have you become a better comedian from them?
Yeah, unquestionably. Now, in several ways. One, I've become a better comedian anyway because I've been gigging for 8 years. Two, I am analytical, and I think I have learnt that being analytical is great, but actually what makes me best is when I stop being analytical. And I might not have learnt that without the podcast. Three, my mental health is better. I'm better and funnier and more creative when I'm happy. And my mental health is better because of the podcast. A, because it has satisfied my need for some kind of place within the community. Part of why I'm doing it, I realise now, only looking back, is because I love the idea of community. I love doing shit like this. I love that you were inspired to do your one. I fucking love it. There's this thing in comedy, some people want to pull up the ladder, and I want to just give away free ladders. I'm like, come on, let's all do this. This is great. Within my lifetime, I don't think I can ruin it by getting enough people to start, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I don't think it's possible that I ruin it. I just want it to be available and accessible to everybody because I think it's magical. It's like breath. I'm evangelical about comedy. I'm like, everyone should be into this. So that makes me happy. I have a feeling like I have some kind of tiny, pathetic legacy. But it is nonetheless, no matter how tiny or how pathetic.
Yeah, it's still a legacy.
It is a fucking legacy.
Yeah.
And sometimes if I'm feeling down, I think there are people who are happier now because of my show.
Bro.
Because it changes in a tiny, tiny way. It helps nudge someone. I've got a list of over 100 people who started doing comedy because of the show. And that was when I kept the list, which was years ago. So there'll be more now. So all of those things have made me happier. When I'm happier, I'm better. And then, of course, there are the things I've learned from the podcast which have made me a better comic. And those fall broadly into the categories of inspiring experiences where I've discovered new comics because of it, like Pete Holmes.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew about him and then I got stuck into him and then I fell in love with his stuff and then I interviewed him.
I was in a lift with him in Montreal.
Yeah. So who said that as well? Was Yassine in the same lift?
No. Yassine was a couple of years afterwards. I was in the early one. I was just excited.
Oh, it was Alfred. Alfred interviewed me. He was also in a lift with him. He said, I'm not going to tell him I'm a comic.
Yeah, no, I was in a lift with him and he was interviewing Hassan Minhaj. It was 2015.
Because he was doing a show in a lift where he interviewed people in a lift.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, I follow these guys and I was like, I'm such a big fan. He's like, can you leave the elevator? I was like, of course I would.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So the podcast inspires me to stay explorative and keep discovering new stuff. When it's easy as a comic to go, I do my stuff, and hey, I'll be like that guy in the Ramones who never listened to another guitarist.
Yeah.
I'll never see another gig. I'll just do my own thing. Well, this makes sure it makes me keep discovering stuff. So now I'm watching Robbie Collins and Loyiso Gola and just have an incredible
both have
time.
been on this podcast, guys. Both of them have been on this podcast.
Such great comics. But I think they often save their best stuff for my podcast.
No, they don't. Robbie Collins, very good podcast. Loyiso Gola, very good podcast. Very, very good.
So broadly the categories are, the podcast makes me explore and discover new stuff that I find inspiring. People tell me their skills and tricks and stuff like that. That's a very small component of it, but it really does make me kind of go, oh God, you can do it like that. And then there's the other category, which is the realizing that everyone's shitting themselves and thinking they're an imposter and all the rest of it. And that makes me go, hey, come on, everyone has bad gigs. It's fine.
Yeah.
So then there are also, I would say maybe in the fourth category, or maybe in the second one of like tips and tricks, there are things like, one of my favourite ones, and it's a bad example because it wasn't a guest on the podcast. It's a guy called Pete Dobbing, who I always credit at the end as being podcast consultant. And Pete's one of my best friends, and he gave me this tactic. When you're sitting trying to write jokes and you suddenly feel like a piece of shit, or you have an automatic negative thought where you go, oh, I've run out of funny, or every success of my career up to this point was just luck. Actually, I'm a piece of shit and I can't do it. I'm incapable. He said, keep a little tally chart in the back of your notebook or wherever you're writing in, with every time you think, I'm an imposter, I can't do it, write imposter with a little heading and just put one little tally mark in there. You go, there we go, I thought about today, well done. And then get back to, don't spend any time ruminating on it, just log it. I felt like that. And then at the end of the day or the end of the week, you can look back and go, oh, I felt like an imposter 5 times and a piece of shit 3 times and like I'd run out of comedy 10 times.
Yeah.
But it stops you thinking about it in the moment so you can fucking get on with writing jokes with your precious time.
That's such a wonderful way of looking at it.
I am, again, evangelical about the fact, like, I, at school, never had a conversation about how everyone constantly felt we were always failing. And I constantly felt I was failing at everything, even though I was perfectly good at school, a good academic kid. But I was anxious, I was worried, and no one ever said to me, we're all worried. And it would have changed my life to know that we were all worried. So I love telling other comics, it's okay to feel like you're a piece of shit. Now, maybe an accidental offshoot of that will be that I flood the world with bad comics, but I don't
Brilliant.
think that
I love that idea. Love that idea, because that separates the good from the incredibly bad.
Yeah,
so
it's worth the risk.
Do you know how good that plays out in my mind? Get to a gig, 10 comedians there. 9 of them have been from the flood, right? 9 of them are shit from the flood.
From the flood? What does that mean?
You said you're going to flood the world with
shit. Oh, yeah, of course.
comics.
Yeah, sure.
So 9 of them are this shit from the flood.
So you'll shine.
Exactly. Yes. That's what I'm about. That's what I'm about. I'll be like, yo, did you hear those guys?
Also, I went to this wacky hippie art college, and one of the things they really impressed upon us is that, or something I particularly took away because it resonated with me, art doesn't have to be one thing. Art can be a shiny artifact to be enjoyed, like a Van Gogh painting, or it can be a tool to be used, like folk art, like Daniel Johnson, like me sitting drawing a picture in crayon with my son. That is art. The same is true of comedy. You can tell your friend a joke. You can be a hobbyist comedian. When I started, people would look down on hobbyists. Well, you're not real. You're cluttering up the circuit. Fuck off. It belongs to them as much as anyone else.
What's a hobbyist comedian?
Oh, well, like you're never really going to ever become pro.
That's a bit of an asshole thing to call them.
Well, it is, but there's a lot of comics in the UK, and some of them you saw, like, or a perennial open spot. I would hear the phrase, a perennial open spot. Someone who is just an open spot, they're never really going to make it to being paid. They're allowed. Comedy belongs to them as much as it belongs to Trevor Noah.
It does. And which leads to my next thing, because I love talking about the differences between scenes and industries. And I went to a lot of comedy shows.
Silence made it sound like I don't, but actually I was drinking water.
He was drinking water. I went to a lot of gigs when I was there in England. And I'm fascinated because the stories are so, I wouldn't say similar to my stuff, but I can feel it's much more storytelling nature compared to a lot of the American stuff that I watch. And like when I went to go watch Kitson, I watched him 2 nights in a row, and it was just the way he tells the story is the thing that I inspired the most. And then I watched a lot of other club comedy, and I was like, I could do this thing. I can do this thing. I want to do this thing here. How does a person like myself, I'm not horrible at comedy. I'm pretty decent. I'm not shit at all.
You can have my quote for your flyer, not horrible at comedy.
Thank you. That's what I wanted. I'm putting that on every poster. Not horrible. And I will tag you in every promotion I do. Everyone. Until you get to a point going, please, can you stop? I said, you can't take back words. It's there forever. So I want to ply my trade in England. How do I, as a person, let's say I can afford to go to England. Let's say I can get a special visa as well. What's the first thing I do?
Hang on, there was an abrupt end to that question. So let's assume you can afford to go there, and you being used personally, or you being any comic outside of England.
Let's say a reasonable comedian, a comedian that is talented enough to perform on a circuit, not like an open spot, someone that has some gravitas behind them from an industry that I've been doing comedy for 12 years in South Africa, so it's
fine.
not
Okay.
So I'm not like, I'm wet behind the ears.
Sure.
I've just done my first 15s too. I've got 4 one-man shows.
Drive behind the ears comedian. What is that? What do you mean? What's the most efficient strategy of getting paid in the UK?
No, just getting gigs, performing enough, and becoming part of the circuit.
Okay, so turn up. I think the biggest thing is to turn up and physically be there.
Yes.
And there are some clubs where your chances of getting on the bill are greater if you become a friend of the club.
Yeah.
And you are always there, and people can tell that you give a shit, because comedy is full of selfishness.
Yes.
And as someone who runs a gig, I run a small gig in Bedminster in Bristol. I co-run it with a couple of people, and that's an incredibly good way to run a gig. I wish I'd done it sooner, because I booked the headliners from my little black book of pro comics, and someone always compares, and someone helped us build it, and we've shared the load. I've done less sharing because I am a higher profile, and that's and I
sips tea.
Yes, it's like being in a relationship with someone where your girlfriend says, "If you do that to me again, I'm leaving you," and you go, "Oh well, I don't want that to happen," and then she has the status forever.
Yes.
So we just built it from that point of view. Yes. But I'm sure I'll be surpassed, as always is the case in life. The point is, now that I have a gig, or I'm connected to a gig, if I see someone come to 3 nights and they go, "Can I get on sometime?" I'll give them a gig more than the guy who just emailed me going, "Why haven't you put me on?" So turn up is a big part of it. Play the long game is another part. There are a fuck ton of acts in the UK, course. And they all want to, and some of them are turning up every time, you know. So play the long game. Try and plan in advance as much as you can before you go, but don't expect to suddenly be able to get loads of gigs. Course. I mean, it's just hard. It's hard. Be mentally prepared for how hard it's going to be. And if you have any friends in the UK or people who run gigs or are connected to someone like me or another node, someone who, there are some people who run a bunch of small gigs or comics or what have you. So any help you can get whereby you are, and this is kind of pretty tactical. I've never done this particularly, but I've never really needed to. But if you have a buddy who is already a pro comic there, if there's a South African comic, if you know Loy well.
I do know Loy well. But Loy on the podcast I interviewed said no.
Well, then choose someone lower down the pecking order than Loy. Okay. But if you could walk into the room at the side of Loy, and the Loy, let's call him person L, in this example, if the comedian that you're the buddy of knows the club and crucially knows you and genuinely rates you, there isn't someone that you've kind of had to crowbar hey, can you help me? They have to be your friend and think that you're fucking great.
I'm so glad. Conrad Koch, if you're listening to this thing, my boy, Conrad is a ventriloquist and he's got his puppet called Chester Missing. He's very big in South Africa. Conrad's moving to the UK soon. He signed with Mick Perrin.
Great.
Yeah. So Conrad, my boy, my buddy, my buds. I'll be phoning you later on, Machana. So that's the thing that I wanted to know.
In that example, Conrad isn't someone I know. Maybe he's really connected in the UK.
You should interview Conrad, bro.
He will also. I should interview other people.
No, I'm telling you, bro. I'm telling you from a person that listens to your podcast. Okay. Stop insulting your fans. That's the first thing. If there's some advice I can give you, stop insulting us. I've listened to enough of you now.
I don't think that you can say us when the fan I'm specifically insulting is you.
Oh, thank you. Wow. Well, you heard it here first. Not a horrible podcast, and the fan that I'm insulting.
Not a horrible comedian.
Yeah, not a horrible comedian, and the fan I'm insulting is
only you. There are tactical things like that. A lot of those things are, and listen, you're already doing thing number one, which is ask someone for help. Yeah. Ask someone, how should I do this? Ask another 10 people. Go there on a recce. Meet a bunch of other British comics. Yeah. Make yourself available and friendly in a non-annoying way. Yeah. And rather than sidling up and saying, "Hey, can I? So what is it about?" Say to someone outright, "I'm from here. I'm from South Africa. I want to try and work here. Can I buy you a drink and pick your brains? Do you want to go for a quick coffee now? Can I help? Just ask for help." And a lot of people will tell you to piss off, but a few people and have a strategic chat and go, what's the best way? And build the thing yourself. Just like you would do if you were trying to run a carpentry business. You could just start banging bits of nails in bits of wood.
You come with some of the most wild analogies.
Well, my point is comedy is special in some ways, but in other ways it's not special. Find out, you have to make use of the fact that, okay, it's very different to a lot of things. So I felt like it's special and mystical and I shouldn't really ask because I don't want to break the spell. No, I mean, it feels like that. But it's just a job. Come and ask.
Now, Stuart, come to my favorite part of the show, right? It's when my guest, albeit you, gets to ask me a question, but you must understand that this is one of my dreams. And sometimes you don't want dreams to end, Stuart.
So it's got to be a good question.
Yeah, it's going to be a great question. But if you could just do it like you were interviewing me for ComCompod.
Sure thing.
All right, hold on. Yeah.
This music is not cleared for use on this podcast.
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm clearing it. I'm clearing it now.
Thank you. So this is Stuart's intro music, by the way. Very loud and aggressive. Take it away, Stuart.
So this is Simi.
No, you don't start any of your podcasts like that. You do not.
Yeah, that was the intro. I thought that was a sting.
Oh my gosh! You don't start any. Don't.
Hello.
I'll do it again until we get this thing right.
You want me to start?
You can't spoil my dream.
Okay.
Don't do that. Don't spoil my dream. God. It's long, eh?
Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Stuart Goldsmith, and today I am not recording in the back of my van, but unusually I am recording in a small venue in Artscape in Cape Town, South Africa.
Wonderful.
And if you wanted this to be the real thing, do you want the unedited one where I talk to Nathan, my producer, and
say,
take that bit out, or we'll do a clean?
Yeah, do the clean version.
Okay.
I'll take that out.
And today I'm very happy to be talking to Simi Arif.
It is.
Arif?
Yes, Arif. Yeah.
Arif. Wow. And today I'm very happy to be talking to Simi Arif, who is a not horrible comedian.
Thank you.
From Cape Town?
No,
South Africa?
From Johannesburg.
From Johannesburg, of course. I'm sorry, that's awkward.
The place where I came from.
Nathan, take that out, I'd say at this point. and he's from Johannesburg, and I've got very limited time with him, so I might put this out as look, for this to be really realistic, you need to be me dithering about what I'm going to do with it. I might put this out as special content, or I might just I'm doing my own head in now. So here we are. Oh, sorry, let's pause for a minute because you can hear someone who's trying to park next to the van in which I'm recording this. That's often it. So here's my one question for Simi. Have you got a sting to lead us into?
No, I don't have a sting, but I do have someone leaving a comment in my Instagram DMs.
Listen on Somebody's by Simi Arif, the 8th best podcast in Africa, and in my opinion, the best podcast in South Africa and in the whole of Africa. Well done, man. Keep it up.
Okay.
That is a genuinely lovely thing to do, to chuck in little stings. That's great. That's great.
Thanks, Kaz.
Okay. So here's my question.
Here we go.
You're a successful comedian. You've been going for 12 years.
Yeah.
Why? What's most holding you back? Why aren't you more successful?
I feel my industry is too small. I feel like in South Africa it's easier to hit a ceiling than it is in any other developed industry. We are very new still. We don't, like you spoke on stage about finishing a gig and going to another gig.
Sure.
We finish a gig, go home, and hopefully there's another gig 2 days from now.
Sure.
It's not as advanced as it is.
Okay. Let me ask, and this is what I do on the podcast.
No, that's fine.
let me challenge you on that. Yes. I'm going to ask you the same question again, but I want you to focus on a thing that you can change rather than a circumstance beyond your control. I
do my own shows now. I prefer doing my one-man longer than... I prefer doing a one-man show longer than... I prefer doing a one-man show more than doing a club gig. I love club gigs, don't get me wrong. I think it's nice to go test out stuff. But actually, these days, I test out stuff at my one-man. It's a room full of the people that like me. I like them back. I always use the analogy, it's my friends coming to see me. And I can test out my stuff there. So when earlier on during your talk, you're speaking about, I do in my first hour, I do my show that people come to see and then have an interval and then I just do an extra bit for them, and they can stay if they want to. I do it during the show now. And I prefer it that way. So the things that I try to change is that in two ways. One, I will do as many one-man shows as I possibly can. If there's a venue that I think I can fill up in a place, and it's not like I said, it's not like England where there's lots of venues. Here, there's only a certain amount of towns that can take stand-up. I can't do a gig in like East London. It's tough to sell. I don't have there's not a big enough market.
You mean East London, South Africa?
East London, South Africa, yeah. Okay. And it's like, but I can do one in Joburg. I can do a week in Joburg, a week in Cape Town, a week in Durban. 3 big South African cities, But that's it. And we've got 9 provinces, so that's a third of our country. And I can do that. But it doesn't go anywhere. But what I try to do is that I'll try to bring as many comedians along with me. So I remember when I was doing gigs, I was opening for Riyadh. And Riyadh would be like, go do whatever you want. Go have fun. And it's something that you mentioned in that talk again. You talk about there's no risk when no one knows you. And it was nice. And I mean, there's still a certain amount of people that don't know me, which still means I could still do a lot more risky things. But it's not like that's the only change I can make is by doing my own shows. Yes,
okay. So same question again, but less tactically. What I'm trying to get at is what do you think is the biggest flaw in your personality that you need to overcome?
Volatile.
Go on.
I'm emotional. If you said something to me that upsets me, that involves my industry, I'm not like other people that keep quiet. I'm very vocal, and that upsets people. And so when you upset people, there's a higher chance that you're probably not going to get booked.
Do you regard that as a flaw, though?
Yeah.
Because you're saying that as if you're quite proud. You're secretly proud.
I'm not.
That you say the truth.
No, I'm not. I think I would be in a better space if I kept my mouth shut.
You're tactless.
Yeah. I think I would be in a better place. I'm not saying that.
Is that something you want to change?
I think I choose when I will. I think I'll choose when I go to war with someone these days. I think if I hear something that I honestly to God don't believe, but I hear it from a person that I could not care about, I'll keep my mouth shut. I think that's the easiest thing for me to do.
And then the end music would come in, and then that'd be the thing.
Oh, I don't have the end music with me. Damn it, that's the only thing. I do have this though. Oh wait, sorry. Hold on.
Is this your end music?
No, I don't. No, my end music. I don't even.
That's just. What's the name for one of them? There must. Like,
these are harps.
No. But what's the name for when you have a sting that is like a?
I just call it an outro.
No, but there's got to be a name for it. Like when a trumpet goes, that's called a glissando. So there must be an equivalent.
Why are you
title.
so intelligent, bro? Stop it.
It's not,
How much are you reading?
No, what it is I get one little fact and I try and put it in everything.
He's very clever. Well, Stuart, it was lovely to speak to you. I'm sorry.
Thanks for having me. What a blast.
I'm sorry for keeping you for so long.
This has exceeded my expectations of the interview, and you may not quote that.
I may not quote that, but I'll keep it on the podcast. If you do want to plug yourself to, because Africa's 8th Best podcast does get listened to by a lot of people.
Sure thing.
Guys, I used to do the joke like, listen to a lot of people. I heard 30 people. No, there's a lot of people that listen to this podcast now. Plug yourself. Africa can find out a bit more about you.
Oh, sure thing. Go to comedianscomedian.com and there you can find out everything about me, my podcast, my excellent corporate work, my resilience wing, whereby I go into your business and leverage the information I've learned from 300 plus comedians in order to make your people feel better at failing. Oh, that doesn't sound very good, does it? No. Basically, there's all of that, and or you can look at me on YouTube and see my Conan clip, which is for once the first piece of stand-up on network television that I've ever been 100% pleased with.
No, wait, I can't end a podcast like that. Whoa, hold on. Can I 2 minutes?
Go on, yeah.
Okay, cool. Getting on to Conan.
Yeah.
The feeling. Describe it, and then my follow-up question to that is, how does one even prepare?
Do you mean getting booked for it?
Yes, getting booked for it. Yeah, tell me the process.
It was a long process. So the guy came to see JP is the booker. He's a lovely guy, very has excellent taste in comedy, and occupies one of those positions whereby like you can't get his job, you can't decide to be him. You know, he's just one of those things that over time he became that guy, and now he's this sort of central, an important position in comedy. It's very respected. Of all the late night shows in the States that have stand-ups doing sets on them. Yeah. Conan is really that's the kind of mark of quality one.
Yeah.
I've said too much. But how did it feel to get offered it? It was a fudgy sort of process for me. There wasn't one single moment where it was like, this is definitely happening, you're coming tomorrow, because it took so long to get the visa. So they made the offer, and then I couldn't go for ages till I got the visa. And then it was like, and my agent in the UK was like, well, you've been offered this thing. He'd be happy to talk. He'd be happy for you to submit a set. He saw me. So my agent said he liked you. He'd be happy for you to submit a set for consideration. But we don't think you should bother because it's going to cost so much money for the visa, way more than you'll get paid for the gig. And it's not really part of our plan at the moment that you move into America. So there was quite a lot of all of which made sense and I respect. So then I went away and sort of thought, no, I do really want to do this, and I don't care how much money it's going to cost. This is like a dream. I want to be on Conan. So then I had to record a bunch of sets in order to send the best one for consideration, and I wanted to send the perfect one. So I taped it hundreds of times. Oh, not hundreds, 4. But one of them was at the Edinburgh Festival the year he saw me. It's 3 years ago now. And it degenerated into, like I was doing it, Kitson was comparing, funnily enough, and it degenerated into him revealing the fact that it was at a charity gig, and he said, Goldsmith's here to rip off the charity gig by using it in order to get seen. And so I came on, I was like, well, I can't fucking do the set now. And everyone started chanting, Conan, and then they crowd surfed me around the room. And I wanted to send that in, but I didn't. But now that I've got a good relationship with JP, I should send in that. So it was fudgy and big, and it took ages. So the feeling came when I landed in LA and went to the Burbank studios on the Monday to watch it, knowing that on the Tuesday I was going to be on it. And I would recommend anyone doing any TV stand-up, if there is a chance you can go and see it being taped, see it being taped before you do it, because then you're going back to the scary building rather than there for the first time. And walking out onto that stage and actually doing it was extraordinary. It's one of those things, as you're doing it, you're thinking, I'm always going to have this in my heart. This is a thing I did, and it felt wonderful.
Congratulations.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you. You guys have been listening to Africa's 8th Best podcast. It was a very good podcast today. Like and subscribe. You guys know what to do. I'm in Kenya next week for
Often people ask listeners to review, but you just reviewed your own episode. No. This is a very good one today. I give it 5 stars.
They know. Also, I think when you guys hear this, there should be other podcast news out. But follow my socials. You know where to find me. www.simyarf.me. Whoever bought my .com website, please give it back to me.
So did you have it to begin with?
I did.
And you let it lapse and someone bought it. It was a bot. It was a bot.
No, I don't believe it. Sabotage. Other than that, you guys, thanks, Stuart.
How
so much.
How complete would the circle be if it turned out I'd bought the website?
I would lose my mind. Thank you so much, Stuart.
And I'm giving you back the keys to your .com. Good night.
Simi Arif joins us in studio.
He knows more than you can imagine.
Is President Barack Obama a Muslim?
Because you know it's going to be a zoo.
It was already a zoo.
Did anything happen while I was gone? Haven't you noticed the whole place is on fire?
Let me tell you why you're here.
But they can only speak in question.
Are there side effects or
Just diarrhea.
My first guess is...
Simi.
Like who's there, this guy?
Lesser known somebodies.